Hello. Welcome all to the Architecture and Design for Society lecture series in the academic year of 2024. This is a recurring program. We have about 1 to 2 events per month. The series features esteemed speakers from various design disciplines, both local and international, who will share their expertise, insights, and experiences on design and research that address societal issues and contribute to the betterment of society. Participants and attendees to the Architecture and Design for Society lectures may earn Continuing Professional Development Points, CPD, by registering and attending these lectures if they are architects or licensed professionals in relevant fields. Please be notified that participants who attend more than 80% of the total lectures in the academic year 2024 will receive a certificate of completion. This certificate may be used as part of a credit bank for credit transfer when enrolling in the Faculty of Architecture Chulalongkorn University programs. Thank you very much to our sponsors, Nippon Paint, Decorative Coating, Sukhothai, and Woodmark Company for their generous support of this event. I'd like to invite the INDA director, Dr. Shusak Jathapong, to officially open the event.
Well, thank you, Patrick. Welcome, everyone. Good evening, and this is my pleasure to welcome you to the 7th installment of our lecture series. This platform continues to serve as a vital space for dialogue, exchange, and critical thinking, bridging diverse voices and perspectives into our academic environment. Through these lectures, we challenge environmental ideas, expand our understanding of architecture, and explore how design can engage with the complexity of our world. Today's lecture is particularly meaningful as Wtanya, Chanvitan, and Takahiro Kume are both faculty members at INDA. Their contribution to both practice and academia make them invaluable voices in today's architectural discourse, shaping not only the profession but also the next generation of designers. We are fortunate to have them as part of our teaching communities, inspiring students through both their pedagogies and their work. With that, let's begin our session. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy the lectures.
It is my great privilege to introduce today's speaker, Bangkok-Tokyo Architecture, an innovative architectural studio founded in 2017 by Wtanya, Chanvitan, and Takahiro Kume. Based between Bangkok and Tokyo, their practice is distinguished by a deep engagement with architecture's capacity for openness, adaptability, and subtle intervention. Bangkok-Tokyo Architecture is guided by an enduring curiosity about the relationship between everyday materials and the spaces they shape. Their work moves beyond conventional architectural narratives, challenging the discipline's traditional, expert-driven frameworks in favor of new models of sustainability and inclusivity. Through their projects, they explore ways in which architecture can exist not as a static imposition, but as an evolving and responsive presence in its environment. Both Wtanya and Takahiro bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to their practice. Wtanya holds a degree from KMUTT and Musashino Art University, while Takahiro is an alumnus of Ritsumeikan University. This extensive professional experience in both Thailand and Japan has shaped the design ethos that is deeply informed by the cultural and material context of these two regions. Beyond their practice, their engagement with architecture is equally rooted in academia. They are not only accomplished designers, but also dedicated educators. We are extremely proud to call them colleagues and esteemed instructors at INDA. Through their teaching, they challenge students to think critically and creatively about the evolving role of architecture and its elements, inspiring a new generation to question, experiment, and reimagine built environments in meaningful ways. Bangkok-Tokyo Architecture's contributions have been widely recognized on the international stage. Their work has been exhibited in Thailand, Japan, and Italy, and has been featured in leading architectural publications, including Chutokutokushu and Shinkenchiku and the Architectural Review. Among their accolades, they were honored with the 2024 Rice University Spotlight Award and received a highly commended distinction in the Architectural Review's Emerging Awards in 2023. These are testaments to the impact and resonance of their approach. Today's lecture will provide deeper insight into their design philosophy, one that embraces flexibility, adaptation, and the transformative potential of everyday architecture. It is an honor to have them here with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming Bangkok-Tokyo Architecture.
Thank you, Patrick, for the introduction. It's a very special occasion here today. We're really excited to be sharing a big part of our lives and our time with our friends and colleagues and students, and it's a very, very special occasion. So I'll ask Taka to start off, and then we can sort of hopefully end the lecture with a lot of interesting questions and discussions, which I look forward to having you with all.
So I can start. So in 2017, we established Bangkok-Tokyo Architecture, an architecture firm based in Bangkok and Tokyo. Now we mainly designed residential, like small to medium scale residential and commercial, and sometimes office and installations. Through our practice, we discovered that we want to introduce an equitable and public nature to even the most private spaces where various contradictions and opposite elements like a new and old, near and far, local and international all present at the same time, allowing everything to access the architecture and people to freely interact its meaning. Architecture for us is a medium for creating those conditions of openness. In other words, architecture is always born from its own context, yet we have always considered how it can be free from that context and connected to everyday life. This is a photo took by Lampan Valley in Nepal after we established our farm, which is 2017, right after earthquake actually. And it shows a tea house located in the mountainside next to very big rocks. And rocks generated the hut, and the hut generated the, how can I say, like a garden, plaza, and the plaza generated the furniture. And then in this place, the locals provide the tea to hikers, and they conversation with hikers as well. What we interest in from this picture is where's the beginning of architecture. For example, rock is a part of the mountain, and mountains are part of earth. And then rock generated the hut, and the hut generated this place, like a plaza. So we are not sure where is the beginning of space, or beginning of architecture, and what kind of like element is generated the spaces. This kind of like continuity of the context is for us is very interesting and very surprised. So starting from this experience, we try to find some like words describing to our architecture to generate how can I say, like spaces that can allow people everyone can participate in this in our places.
And as Taka mentioned, we travel a lot. Travel is a big part of the way we carry through with our practice. We take a lot of photos of buildings and non-buildings, buildings by architects, buildings by people, and random objects as we travel. Here are just a few samples of the collections of images that we take and we've taken since the start of our practice. So then we began to think about how can we categorize ourselves along with the images that we've taken. Mainly, we choose to categorize the images through two main axes in relation to the topics that we're interested in the most. So the vertical axis there is materials and resources. On the top, we have very industrial, universal, ready-made materials. At the bottom, unprocessed and native materials. The other axis there is method, editability and openness. On the far left, we have extremely low-tech, editable or hackable architecture. On the far right, there is the high-tech, exclusive, very closed, internalized, and highly technical architecture. So you might recognize some buildings there in the images, and you'll see that a lot of the images on the upper right is designed by contemporary architects. And we think to ourselves, where do we place our practice? Where do we see ourselves within this sort of interpretation of methods and editability? So we look at this little void there, or an empty spot on the chart. And for us, this area is the most interesting and fascinates us the most. We feel that this area of kind of not so low-tech, but not so industrial, but somehow a mixture of everything, liberates architecture from exclusivity, from context, and moving toward a more accessible architecture which accommodates the nature of continuity and change. So after we've sort of established what we want to do and don't want to do, we come up with sort of 5 key philosophies or methods within our practice. So all of these themes, hopefully you'll see upcoming within sort of all of our projects in the later part of this lecture. So first of all, the familiarity of materials and systems talks about giving value to ordinary materials, systems that are part of the surrounding culture or environment. This approach finds beauty in the commonplace and makes architecture that reflects everyday surroundings. Open-ended structures refer to creating versatile and flexible structures that allow for diverse interpretations. Structures become an enabler of space rather than something that's hidden, in which the boundaries of function and form always remain fluid. So these structures are always open to repurposing and is not strictly defined or limited to a certain function or person or time. A form or system that can be adapted and evolve with different uses over time. Durability and transience refers to counterbalancing permanence, such as concrete, with lightness and creating a lasting system which allows for the constant change of whatever inside and its components. So this is mainly about balancing durable structures designed for longevity, but still could easily be repurposed or regenerated. We believe in incorporating different timelines and lifespans of materials, components of architecture to the design. Exposed assembly means revealing the natural assembly of things, exposing true methods of construction rather than hiding them. And by exposing how architecture is put together, we free knowledge from experts and professionals, making architecture more accessible and editable. And finally, essentializing elements refers to creating spaces using fundamental architectural elements, emphasizing the simple and only the essential, and enabling flexibility and adaptability to others. So with that said, we're going to now show you some of the projects we've done in our office, and Takahiro will start us off.
So we can start from House K. House K is a house located in an old residential area, characterized by 2-story buildings with gable roofs set back from the road. Over time, the neighborhood was changed with houses being painted in various colors, fences being built, and window being replaced, resulting in a diverse residential landscape. The client decided to reconstruct their family house due to changes in their family structure and deteriorations of the existing house. The new house takes on a form which seemingly emerges or organically from its surroundings, blurring distinction between origin and end. From the beginning of this project, we wanted to make a house that was not about creating an absolute form or image, but an architecture where there could be multiple subjects to purpose continuation even if the occupant changes or the house loses its function as a house. During the design process, we employed the usage of working model, which kept updating as alterations were made on site. Include the brick pattern, which was taken by on site and mapped on after the walls were built. The model itself transcends time, functions, and its roles in the architecture process. The house is set back from all sides. There is no boundary line, but actually there is boundary line surroundings. And then each floor serves a distinct function, non-hierarchical and free-flowing. The first floor is a mother's room, which includes a living and dining and some closet and bedroom and then toilet, bathroom. And second floor is for common usage, which is living room and dining again. This is small living and dining room, and this is more like common living and dining room, and guest toilet, and then some storage. And the surroundings has balcony, which is semi-outdoor space. And then the semi-outdoor space, it has the stairs to go to third floor. And third floor is son's room, which is like every floor has like different functions, and it can be like connected at the same time detached. The construction method employed is most common in this area. This area means like in Asia, I think, and even used to construct high-rise and skyscrapers, often often to close by using like a decoration for facade. And the structure size, type, and dimension are also most typical found. A reinforced concrete post and beam structure is built with cantilever beams in each direction, which means here is the cantilever part. Typical bricks are then laid in double layers in between the columns by modifying this internal framework. The house is experienced even from the street. It becomes accessible to all. This white wall defines the location of the function core, which is like the toilet or storage or M&B space. And then that core defines the space. And everything from the lighting fixture and the window frames to the bricks all can be easily bought and replaced from the local homes improvement store. The first floor is defined by surroundings corridor connected to the garden. On the east balcony, a large sunscreen curtains is installed to create more private from the view of neighboring houses and private and element of softness. The materials is same as those of the car cover. We worked with a curtain designer who designed and stitched it for us, who is actually from the alumni.
Yeah, the curtain designer was an Inda intern at the time, and she said, John, I don't want to do architecture, I like fashion.
Yes.
So why are you here? But let's combine that and then design and make a curtain for us. So we ended up hiring her to design this curtain, which was inspired from actually the pattern of a skirt. So it would move really sort of dramatically when the wind blows.
Yeah, and then this curtain provide like a softness and then the contrast between like rigid like structure. The projecting beam create an entry for natural light. Also become shared space such as corridor or balcony. Provide connectivity and offer potential for future extensions. The third floor is floating core merge the function of sleeping and bathing with the private access to its own rooftop. The house's composition has a very clear order, but without differentiation between the materials of interior and exterior spaces. Bricks are piled on the concrete frame, and steel sashes are installed from the outside in the gaps created by the bricks. The house honestly displays its assembly, shows how things are put together, allowing people to understand and discover potential in their own spaces. Differing rows of elements detached from one another, creating a fragmented but continuous entirety. Occupation of the house reveals ways in which the client interprets the free-flowing spaces. The kitchen and living room becomes one large balcony space, a mix of exterior and interior functions. This is a bedroom, mom's bedroom, like celebrate items line the walls of the mother's room.
So the second project here is Folly in the Forest, located in Chiang Mai, a province in northern Thailand for those who are from abroad. The client came to us wanting to activate an empty plot of land that has been left unused for a long time. The semi-outdoor structure is a place for locals now to relax and gather, and on the weekends it transforms into a vibrant marketplace. The simple composition consists of an inclined roof made of layered leaves separated by a steel pipe grid frame and elevated platforms. For those who don't know, the leaves come from a type of teak tree. In northern dialect, we call bai tong tung or bai tong tung. And it can be found in parts of Burma and Cambodia. It's a big leaf with actually one side that has sort of a waxy, waterproof texture. And for centuries, locals have been gathering these fallen leaves to thatch their homes, a tradition which helps reduce forest fires during dry season. And because of the nature and the size of the leaves, they're often placed in a very steep roof, so more vernacular construction. But our idea was to use it in a way that would free it from this vernacular context and kind of enter into the realm of a more contemporary architecture. The plan is always, as we do it, very uncomplicated. The geometrically shaped roof on top of a 2x2 grid with clusters of raised platforms. And again, a lot of time with our plans, there's no clear front or back, allowing entry from all sides. The structure stands almost invisible in this forested surroundings. You can see that the slim steel pipes sort of reflect the light and almost disappear into the environment. We deliberately cut each component or each element into sizes of no longer than 3 meters. This means the whole structure is small enough for the entire building to be assembled by hand and a small welding machine. The joints are joined by nuts and bolts, which means it's also ready to be reassembled, replaced, or removed at any time. So if you look carefully, everything in this building is constructed entirely by repetition of common materials, assembled by hand. The leaves are individually folded and strung onto pieces of bamboo before being layered again onto hand-tied steel mesh. The entire structure can be regenerated by replacing individual parts and materials as needed. So an image from inside, people are free to circulate and enter through the street-like pathways created from the elevated platforms. The leaves themselves, because they are organic material, they have to be replaced every 2 to 3 years. And an activity which can be done by anyone in the area. Rocks from the surrounding site are then placed on their leaves to weigh them down. Eventually, the roof becomes like a second ground, a gathering place for both living and decomposing organisms. For us, somehow, this architecture shares similarities to the human body. A composition of living and dead cells coexisting together in one entity. At its lowest point, the roof comes down to as low as 1.5 meters. So like a landscape, people can see and touch the roof, the leaves. An architectural element that is usually out of reach has become more accessible. And every weekend, the local vendors come and sell and talk and chat and sell locally sourced produce and crafts. The elevated platforms are used as selling and seating spaces. We did not select the furniture or curate what they wanted to use or how they laid out the space, but the height of the roofs sort of reflect how they use the space, and it allows them to be closer to the ground. So after 2 years, this is what's happened to the roof, right? So the roof is decomposed, and it's time to change. So we did the rethatching of the roof last November, I think, right? Last November.
Yeah.
I can show, yeah. And this is a video of the moment before rethatching. So you see that the roof has become another ground, and lots of squirrels and birds and insects began living there, and the roof began leaking, of course, because of that. And in a way, it was a celebration, but also saying goodbye to everybody who was occupying the roof. And then finally, we take down the old roof and put up the new roof, and we do that sort of bit by bit so that the vendors can still sell and operate the market meanwhile. So you'll see that on the right side, the roof has completely decomposed. The next project is Clover. It was done as a part of the Bangkok Design Week in 2022 or 23, I think. And if you see in this image, we kind of were asked to build something for people to use in 1 week at the Civic Plaza in front of the Lancon, at the Lancon Room. And this image is a nice image because it shows the diversity of Bangkok and how eclectic or the different contexts we're dealing with when we're building in Bangkok. We wanted to design a structure that almost seemingly was built by nobody or by no one, by assembling materials or things temporarily on the site that could be found anywhere around Thailand. This is a study model, but basically the plan is just 4 circles, and again with no clear entrance or exit. The circles are forming a sort of clover-like pattern, which we sort of liked and compare it to something that grows out of the wild without being planted. Get another image. And you'll see here in this photo that each column is differing in height. And they're kind of gathering of elements of separate parts, but when coming together, they create a kind of semi-togetherness or semi-fragmentedness. And also when you stand in the center, you have this sort of one large space as well. So here, this is the plan, and you'll see that it's a very simple sort of trampoline-like structure. And the construction of the pavilion, our entire office was there to construct it, put it together in 2 days with, I think, 2 construction workers and a contractor. And you'll see there that we couldn't do anything with the ground, so we decided to weigh down the columns with sandbags. And actually, each sandbag weighs different. So the taller the columns, the bigger the sandbag and the heavier they are. So we calculated the structure in a way that we would use minimum sand, but also only weigh down the parts in which kind of the steel is going really high. So you'll see here that we're using very, very basic materials to do something that potentially anyone could make at home. So here you see the fabric that we've stitched together and use it as a shading device on the top of the columns. This is just salan, or the kind of agricultural netting you find all around Thailand in farms. And underneath the space, you can see that there are points in which the space comes really low and creates a kind of private, intimate spaces, and parts where the structure is higher, you have kind of a vision onto the temple behind. And you'll see there at night, we worked with a lighting designer who bought some lights from Bangkok. Yeah, that's some of our colleagues there high up and one there. They went to support the opening night. But so the lights you see there on the post were bought in Bangkok, which is like an electronic market, modified to become solar lights and have sensors for when people walk into the pavilion at night, the lights would flicker on and off. So this pavilion.
I think we should mention about lighting design. We collaborate with the Duck Unit.
Yeah.
They are lighting, not lighting design, but kinetic design or something.
They're a very cool office, and they do lots of modifications in lighting, analog, digital sort of. So Duck Unit designed this lighting design for us, and so eventually this building became a kind of I would say structure which shows the movement of things you cannot see with your eye, like air or light or movement at night. So this is a kind of like a video from when the structure was completed. And we did work with the structural engineer, and although the structure couldn't be put to the calculator, we tried our best to sort of make it work, and he was standing by on site during the assembly and making sure that hopefully the wind wouldn't blow the entire thing away. All right, this next project is another housing project called House C. This house began with a father and son who had a plot of land near the river, and they wanted to build a house which would make them close to nature. We visited the site, and we felt that this site is so beautiful. Why would you want to build a house here? Nothing could be more beautiful than this empty plot. So we thought that we would build something really, really simple. And we ended up thinking about just having a table-like structure. So a grid and a slab, and then we can live here because the site is so beautiful. So you'll see in the later images that behind or in front of this house on the other side is a very long river axis, which flows beautifully behind the house. So the plan, again, like with all of our plans, is very simple and at the same time very versatile. The house is divided into 2 main zones. The zone on the left is the father's room. The zone on the right is the son space and the master bedroom, the master living room. And then the center is a earthen floor shared space. You'll see that the grid is all even, 3.6 meters. It's designed to be slightly small, not too big. It's small enough so that you're not staying inside all day. And it's also small enough so that we found out that the toilet didn't fit in the grid. So instead of adjusting the grid to the function, we deliberately designed bay windows or extensions outside of the grid to sort of destroy our own rules or break the rules that we create to suggest that our architecture is possibly something that could be repurposed or edited. We like to take a lot of photos of our structural completions. We love when the structure is finished. We think that's already kind of like one point of completion. This is the structure of this house C. You'll see that it's a flat slab, continuous, and kind of the same span grid there, so a table-like structure. An image of the earthen floor during construction. In the center area, there is no concrete slab, which means if you pour water down, the water will seep down into the ground and the cool air can evaporate up from the ground, and the wind from the river can blow this cool air into the rooms surrounding this space. Another image from the construction site. So from outside, the house looks very unassuming, almost like a storage or something very anonymous, very closed. But when the doors open, the road and the river and the house connect into one flowing space. And this is the the earthen floor after we've finished construction. And you'll see that 50% of the house is actually non-aircon space, so outside space, and the other 50% is the rooms that surround the center space. We also worked with a collaborator of ours who's a furniture designer to make that sort of Enzo Mari-inspired furniture from reclaimed wood from another house as well. And so this central earthen floor is actually sort of slightly inspired from the Doma space.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And the Doma space is an earthen floor in traditional Japanese architecture before perhaps the invention of concrete, where you would use to do lots of different activities such as cooking or fixing your car.
Entrance.
Or as an entrance to take off your shoes. And this is sort of kind of a similar typology to that space.
An important point is I think the Doma space can make everyone actually. Our contractor also, it's first time to make Doma space, which we try to teach them how to make Doma by using a YouTube.
Yeah, we opened a YouTube and we translated the YouTube, and then we tried together to make different types of Doma spaces, and the client went to see the sample, so everything was first time for them and for us as well. And here's the view from the master bedroom out into the river. So all corners of the house can be viewed from one side to the other. You'll see that we use timber frames for interior courtyard and aluminum frames for the outer courtyard, just because they last longer and are more withstanding to the weather. We also designed the furniture and the built-in furniture, which suggests the functions of the rooms. This is the bay window I was talking about when we couldn't fit in some of the functions, so we extruded out the kitchen out into the back garden. That's a view of the bathroom. It actually has curtains, but it's designed so that the house doesn't have a clear front or back. The double-sided mirror reflects the greenery on the other side of the plot. A view of the living room out into the river. And this is, I think, our favorite elevation of the house, actually. We feel that the house is basically a structure for these attachments of mediators with the environment. So water tanks and this sun shading and solar panels sort of unbashfully attach themselves onto there, and this is just the aesthetic that we have as a result of mediating between inhabitant and energy and resources and nature. So if you walk past the front garden, you go up the stairs, you enter into this roof space there. So the roof is actually designed so that the client can actually build on top of it, right? So we've kind of calculated the structure so that they can build on top of it once they have more budget or need more space. The roof is basically just a non-functional space, but it's there to mediate between living spaces and nature. So on the floor there, you see it's we use a lot of this very low-tech solar slab, as they call it. It's like a concrete block with legs, so it creates a kind of air ventilation and shade underneath so that the sun doesn't hit directly under the slab. And then there you have a steel frame, which creates potential sort of fixtures for fixing sun shading. And again, with all of our projects, we like to take photos once the house is occupied and view from the living room currently. And then the sort of central courtyard has become a place for gardening and gathering and sort of somehow an extension of the interior space. Here you see the kitchen there, which we designed to deliberately not have a wall behind, so you're actually cooking with lots of light and seeing out into the garden. You want to talk about this project?
Yeah. This project is called House R, which is not located, like we designed this house for Tokyo, not Tokyo, like Kanto area, which includes Tokyo and surroundings Tokyo. This project is a little bit tricky because there is no client. So the contractor asked us to make a product house before we find they find the plot or client. So this house is actually on the website, and they call this series as like a Shingata. Shingata means like a new type of like house or something like that. And they invite some architects to design the house. So the top part is several like type of the house.
So interestingly, you can actually go click on the houses and you'll get the plan and the approximate price. And also they have suggested like plot pairings. So they also find the plot of land, and then young clients can come and find the design that they like and find a plot that they eventually buy and know the approximate price of the house. Right?
Because of the client, the contractor is like developer as well. So they use how can I say, like sell the land also. And this is our design, like, which is very small, I think around 70 to 80 square meter or something. Yes. For family or something. Yeah. So we try to quite similar idea from like the design, the house that we designed for Thailand. So we decided to use very basic grid system. Which is like the dimension is also come from very basic, which is like 1820 or something. So that one is actually come from tatami space, but we still use means like Japanese architects still use this number. So we just like following that number to create the grid, and after that we try to modify that grid to make like outline, which is like the boundary between outside and inside. Because nowadays, especially in Japan has like quite extreme climate, so we have to somehow treat the cold weather and hot weather at the same time. So the outline is very important. So we define this house as like we try to generate this house by using only grid, like a traditional grid and outline. This is a plan. So as you can see, the plan also following the grid. So we simply make like one big space, as we probably can use like office or living or dining. We don't clearly define the function, but the right side has like a core, which means like storage, bathroom, and kitchen, and the second floor has a little bit like how does it call this?
Bedroom,
loft space, yeah. And this is images. So there is like a one big like volume space. This is the bedroom on the loft space. This is from outside. So again, we provide to have like a empty grid on the rooftop, and we provide some solar panels and handrail to activate the rooftop also. Because in Japan, since the plot is very limited, so we try to maximize the possibility to use like a space, which surface, yeah.
So basically, the idea of this previous project was, if somebody would be interested to buy the house or build the house, we would get contacted to make a contract and continue with the kind of design. and adjust the design to fit a certain client's requirements. We'll show you like 2 more projects, and one of them is also the DCC project. But this is a studio we recently finished, like last week,
Yes.
like very recently, and the first time actually showing this project or even talking about it. But this studio is called Studio L, and it was designed for a 2-generation office. So there are 2 offices who are related in this studio, and the idea was that this one building could occupy kind of 2 working spaces with completely different characteristics of work. And so you'll see here in this physical model that there are 3 floors, but because the area of the office is located in a green area, we couldn't build very much. So we decided to kind of lift up the house and make a lot of voids and openings to allow for kind of a continuation of the space and lots of light and air entering into the space. So on the first floor is actually an office for a pharmaceutical company. On the second and third floor is an interior design studio, right? And they kind of occupy this space together, and eventually, perhaps if one moves out, the other could occupy or rent out the space as well. So you'll see in the plan of the 3 floors that we like to sort of leave a lot of openness and empty spaces. The top side of all the 3 floors is the core space. So we move all the core and the enclosed or formal functions to the one side, and the front side we leave as open space for them to sort of arrange the space, or potentially, I would say, like rent it out to someone else, or rearrange the space on their own. And in the center there is a staircase which connects all the spaces.
The reason why we have like this big void is we try to maximize the volume.
Yeah. They were really keen on like, I want to build as much as I can, like 100% of the FAR. Do anything you can with, so we can maximize our space. So that's how we figured out kind of having voids and building up 3 floors. Some images from the construction site. We are very, we go to the site a lot, and we are very connected to the way we make, and we go to the site and sketch and see how things get built and figure out other options or other methods in which things can get done. You'll see here with this building, slightly different from our other buildings, the columns are not visible. We use kind of these horizontal beams to carry the load on 2 sides of the walls, in which we hide the columns, and this allows for kind of the maximizing of space and light and flexibility within all the offices. And here is an image of the house from the finished sort of photos of, the office, and you'll see that it's a very sort of transparent facade, sort of staggered, and you visibly see the structure behind the windows. This is the office sort of in comparison to the neighbors' neighborhood, which used to be a residential neighborhood. On the second floor, you can see that there's this kind of light flowing from the top, and this the very light steel staircase is connecting the spaces of the interior design office. A view into the first floor, which is the pharmaceutical office, and that staircase, which actually is a separate entrance for the people on the second and third floor. A view of the atrium, and that staircase made of steel connecting the 2 sides of the building. Again, another view of the atrium. A view from the office out into the street, and you'll see that each floor is actually just one large space with this connecting staircase in the center. And then on the top floor, there is a kitchen and a dining space for gathering and for sharing, or for having sort of, I would say, informal gatherings and parties up there on the rooftop, which connects to the balcony. And I kind of want to note sort of the little fragmentations of the elements which we do. You'll see that the windows and walls and structure is usually slightly disconnected or not connected from one another. Here's an image of the balcony and an image of the studio from the outside. And you'll see that maybe I can go back to this image here. You'll see that the windows are slightly outset by using this steel channel from the wall and attached directly onto the slab, and the kind of beam is inside. So we do this in almost all of our projects to deliberately suggest that each element has a different time span and you could return the building to its zero state or initial state of bare minimum structure. And finally, we want to end the lecture with the DCC project that we completed recently with our current year 4s. This project is called Roof and Room. And so we began this project with a school in Udon Thani, who the principal came to us and said, Ajahn, are you still working with Jula? Do you still have these summer projects that you're doing? And we need this multi-purpose space for our students to do after-school activities. It can be any type of space, but they need a place to sort of store equipment. They do a lot of filmmaking, they do magic shows, they do sports, they do workshops making models, lots of different lots of different things. So the school really wants to promote this kind of after-school activities and need a space for it. So, we were kind of given this plot, or empty sort of volleyball field, which was not being used anymore, which was located right next to the kind of kindergarten playground and another sports field on this side. So that's the images of our students there measuring and surveying the space. And then once we came back, we had this workshop of making models and learning how to sort of think about the relationship of the building to the site, what can we do with the budget and all of this. And we also had engineers who came over to the office to sort of discuss the structure along with the students who kind of, I think was for them first time working with structural engineers. And then after a lot of studies, the students sort of ended up with this plan. I think they couldn't decide between something square or curvy, so we just put both two together. Let's just do both. So that's the roof and the room. And you'll see that it's a kind of very simple shape roof with a room shaped sort of like a cloud in the center. And this is to deliberately allow for access from all sides and not create a backside for both the road or the kindergarten. An isometric showing that the elements are very, very simple, very clear. It looks curvy and students think it's hard to make a curved building, but actually, the only curve that's happening is the purlins there on the top, and it's only doing one type of curve. And for us, it was really important to use the smallest steel possible so that we can avoid fabricating anything in the factory. Everything here was done on site, bent by hand and welded and made by only 3 or 4 construction workers. And here is an image from the top of the structure being built. And you'll see that all the steel, most of the steel, I think we use only 3 types of steel pieces. All of the steel can be cut and then connected, so we kind of waste the least steel as possible. And there's a lot of some cross bracing happening. And the curved members there you see are the purlins. That's the only curved member happening here in the. And then finally, once the building is complete, we have an interesting relationship sort of established with the old school building and this new multi-purpose space. And you'll see that the kind of the back side of this building, which is the kindergarten, is still fully visible from the other side. So approaching the building, there's a sense of mystery, a sense of privacy, sort of hiding in some corners the activities inside. So this is kind of one corner from the entrance, and you kind of reveal, the building reveals itself after you sort of pass this corner. The front side of the building, you'll see again with the transparency, and the space behind is fully visible. Inside the room, we decided to have a ceiling because they needed to store equipment and tools and all of that. And we use polycarbonate ceiling so that the light reflecting off the silver roof can light up the room naturally without having to turn on any lights. So there are only 3 light bulbs in this building which are turned on at night for security reasons. And here are some images of this space where the roof comes down lower and you have this more intimate sort of semi-outdoor classroom. And here is finally an image of the opening. So we all went there. And then we have also furnitures in the back, which our students designed and fabricated by one of the families, the fathers of our students who had a furniture factory. And we also donated the building and the furnitures to the school. And that brings us to the end of our lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for any questions if the audience has, so please let us know. Yep.
Hello, John.
Hello.
I'm a big fan of your firm, actually.
Thank you.
I think I have 2 questions about the approach of your firm. I think first question is about simplicity. So I think your approach is mainly focusing about the intrinsic value of the simplicities. I wonder if you approach to the clients or when the client approach you and you propose this kind of simplicities as a concept, what kind of expression from the clients that they really, either like simplicity or actually they really think about simplicity, that's why they approach you? That's one question. I wonder how the firm organized in terms of commercial value, this kind of thing. And second question is about, is the name of the firm Bangkok-Tokyo Architecture? Of course, it's Takahiro is Japanese, you're Thai. But I wonder that from the point of simplicity, is that there's this kind of phase that Japanese culture really talk about, this kind of phase, lighting, materials, texture, something really simple in the nature. I wonder those kind of influence really appears into your core value of designs. It's like a main focus, mainstream to drive your design toward any kind of a universal context. For example, simplicity can be anywhere, any context in the world. How's about thinking in Thailand? What's kind of a core poetical and philosophy mainly focused? I want to do great, I want to do simple, but behind it is about something that appears universally in the site. It can be any kind of shape, or it's so to wrap up, it's what's kind of a poetical phase that you think that your firm really want to appear in the Thai context?
So in terms of simplicity, right? Simplicity, now all over the world the economy is very bad, so no one can afford luxuriness basically. So we just explain about that thing. So you can afford only this. Yeah, it's one reason actually.
I mean, just to add on, I don't know if we've been lucky or unlucky. We have a lot of low budget projects, low to medium budget, and the client cannot afford everything that they want. And what we do is we help them prioritize what they can afford. And we tell them that a house or an office or whatever they want to build is not it doesn't have to be perfect or complete from the beginning. But just let's start with what you can afford, and let's start with this amount of space and something that can enable you to grow with this object or with the space in the future. So simplicity is not an aesthetic, but it's a necessity now, we believe, especially with our clients. So we don't push it as a form of a style, but sort of something that they must do to have a good life with their budget and within what we have at the moment, right?
Yeah, so I think simplicity is for us maximize the possibility. For example, house care, the client decorate very a mom's taste, but we love that kind of decoration. So our we try to make architecture that allow any decoration add on later. What Fon said. Yeah. And the one more question is what is one more question?
The next question is about Japanese. Yeah, I mean, our office name is very random. We don't have any meaning behind the name, nor do we have meanings behind the names of our projects. They're kind of house K. Okay, we don't want to give it a title because we don't want to give any nuance or any other meaning to something other than it the way it is, right? So the same with our office. I think we just moved from there. We had a project there and it stopped and we moved. So then we just named it the way we moved, but it doesn't have any nuance or meaning. But with that said, we are very conscious to not be fixed with one context. So you'll see that we don't talk so much about Thainess or Japaneseness or locality or so much, but we want to build something that is free from this context, but you're applying the context in the way of perhaps some certain methods of fabrication or certain lifestyles or cultures are living. If our buildings were to be built somewhere else, it would probably be interpreted differently. But it is the way it is because it's being built within our context. And people use the space and understand the space in an Asian way. And that's context. Context is not wood, concrete, or bamboo, or anything. It's context is the people. So we believe that we don't force or promote any certain cultural nuance. But it comes through, I think, without us knowing, because we met in Japan and I spent, I think, 8 years there altogether. And then I never practiced in Thailand before coming to have my own firm. So it really just like we are kind of foreign and it just came out naturally with our backgrounds, but it's not intentional, I think. Yeah.
Hi, Tan. So I noticed that of your project have like the core idea of embed the philosophy and concept into each of like structural expression and buildings. And I wonder, like in Thai context, where your building has like introduced a new typology, like the open plan and stuff. Do you have like any difficulty in communicating with client or workers who doesn't get that kind of idea, or how you like deal with them or negotiate with them? Do you have like any problem on that?
Yes, we have difficulty every day communicating with everyone. And with clients is one thing. I think within the Thai context, we use the space freely. The fluid of space usage is something that's very deep down inside our culture. But as society develops, people want organized spaces. They want houses with rooms and cupboards and things. And we're just basically reminding them of something that was done before, but perhaps not so familiar with now. So we do have trouble sometimes communicating. That's why we make a lot of models, Shom, and then we make a lot of models and we make a lot of plans and drawings. We do everything to communicate with our client about what we want the things to be done. A lot of times clients and contractors see our buildings and they think it's really cheap and easy, but it's actually not at all. It's not cheap, not expensive, but not cheap and not easy at all. It's a lot of different layers of thinking about what has to be added, what has to be shown, and the procedure of the construction is very meticulous. We've had a lot of trouble sometimes miscommunicating with contractors. That's normal, but we now have a couple of teams that we enjoy working with, and we make sure that we're working with them very closely. We never tell them what to do or kind of this top-down relationship that you would imagine a master architect would have. For us, it's very equal, very flat, and a lot of phone calls and driving to site, sending drawings, and it's a very kind of close-knit relationship we have with the contractors. But do you want to add something?
In terms of detail, some of details come from contractor. Actually, we don't we don't force them to make like a difficult details, but we want to like discuss with them which detail is actually like a necessity or it actually like a, how can I say, like efficient, I think. And then in terms of communication, especially for house like a Doma house, I stay at the site during I think the site finish around 2 months or something.
Stay 2 months on the site.
Yeah, just I every day go to the site and I talk with like
Just to make sure they get it right.
yeah, and sometimes they ask me to get some like material.
So yeah, I got a phone call from him. I signed off on something. I'm not sure. So he signed off on the tile delivery. Like they thought he was a worker there and just signed off, and then he didn't even check what he was signing for. But it's like that kind of blurred line between kind of our work as architects becomes, yeah. But so yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. My question is kind of a follow-up from the last question. So a lot of the houses you were presenting, I wanted to ask if the clients are using those houses as their primary residence, or do they live elsewhere and these are like their secondary houses? Because a lot of the things you said about organized living is kind of a big deal for me, because a lot of the houses, from the pictures at least, one thing that jumped out to me was the lack of storage. So how do long-term clients deal with that kind of things, or you deal with that kind of thing?
I think we do. So most of the houses, all of the houses are used as primary residences. And what we usually do with storage space is we, instead of creating a lot of built-in furniture, we have storage rooms. So we kind of dedicate entire rooms for them. So there can be a room full of stuff and a room empty of stuff. And we also sort of, because we want to promote or give them a sense of flexibility, a lot of the storage is bought after. So there is storage, but more loose storage, and then storage within the rooms. And then they do use all of their houses as primary residences. And I mean, in the beginning when we first, so our office is around 7-8 years old. In the beginning it was harder to convince clients about what we were doing. But as we have more projects, we usually take them to see the houses and talk about the lifestyle and things. And it makes them, gives them a kind of a bigger, kind of a clearer picture of how they would live within the house. Yeah.
When you talk about simplicity and also like the materials, I wonder if the material you chose for all these projects are merely dictated by the budgets, or are they thought about for its lifespan, as well as how the house after it's being handed over, how they maintenance and things like that?
Well, yes, definitely. For example, the concrete structuring, for those who were from overseas, concrete is still the cheapest way to build here in Thailand. I mean, we're not brutalists. Although we are interested in different styles of architecture, we don't do it because we're brutalists, but we do it because it's cheap. And that's kind of the reason we're using a lot of concrete structure, first of all. For our temporary structures, we use a lot of steel. That's cheaper, and then small profile steel is cheap. And then so it's dictated by economy, but also oftentimes by the budget and the idea that if it were to need maintenance, the client would be able to maintain it easily. But also, there's also the sense of certain parts where we want it to be maybe less nuanced or less contextual. We would avoid perhaps using materials that are found specifically in a certain context and had to be shipped from certain somewhere and to display it as an item, but rather sort of something that is part of a general everyday ecology. Right? Do you want to add?
I think in terms of the material and then construction method, the cheap price is one reason to choose that material. But to us, I think we believe we should develop architecture like not only like specifically this house. Like we try to develop entire architecture like view maybe. So which means like for us like amount of the how does it go, like amount of how does it go, like amount of the structure that used for typical house is very important. For example, like a timber structure is quite like a one aspect is quite like sustainable, but we as architect we have to develop like a concrete RC culture also because of the amount of concrete culture is I think whole world is like a majority. Yeah, so we want to develop that kind of like a construction method also. Yeah.
Hi there. Yeah. Thank you, Chanvitan and Takahiro, for that window on your work and the window on the way you work as well. I think it's really nice to see, really interesting. So a lot of the presentation we've seen today is to us as kind of architects or would-be architects. I just wonder how you present your projects, present your designs to clients, maybe not necessarily familiar with your work, what media you use to present to them. We haven't seen any kind of renders or anything like that today. And how to sort of, how do you manage clients' expectations? How do they know what they're getting when they start work with you?
I think with our clients, we make a lot of models. So physical models of different scales. I think we didn't get a chance to show it in this presentation, but we have at least 5 or 6 models for one small house project. And these models keep developing, so we show them the models. And we have renderings as well. So we also do renderings. Not until recently we were just doing collages, but we found out that clients don't know what they're expecting. So we kind of finally asked our staff to let's do something more realistic and that. So we do renderings and we also have models, and then we also take them a lot to our previous buildings to see kind of the materiality in what we do. But with all that said, all that done, there is still room for misinterpretation and misunderstanding, I think. So I think that the next step comes when we're kind of frequently visiting the site with the client and just showing them and making sure. And sometimes we even, because our houses are quite small compared to the Thai lifestyle, and we're coming from Japan, we've even done sort of like taping on the floor to make sure they know what size of space they're going to get. Yeah.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Well, I'm obviously a big fan of your work as well. And I mean, I'm very intrigued by the way you describe your practice. I think formally when we talked about your work as well as in this context, I feel that there's a very strong sense of sensitivity in the way that you describe your approach and your philosophy. And I really am inspired by the way that you want to liberate architecture from this kind of expert, exclusive practice. On the other end of the spectrum, there is this kind of vernacularity that you're also equally careful about claiming. So my question is, why do you think it's important, to not claim vernacularity, or why is it also equally important to liberate architecture from vernacularity? Are you making criticism of, Rudolphsky or something like that?
It's very sharp question. Also difficult to answer in my diplomatic way. I think we can never make vernacular architecture. Architects cannot make vernacular architecture. The reason it's vernacular because it wasn't made by architects, and we don't dare to tread on that. But we also do not deny our interest or our intrigue in things that are made by non-architects. And I think it's our job to classify or try to understand why we're intrigued in those things, but not to replicate them. Vernacularity is actually very rare nowadays. We don't want to kind of promote nostalgia or maybe, kind of Orientalism or any sort of nostalgic language that would be tied to Thai architecture, let's say, from the Western media, right? So I think it's about continuation and understanding that vernacularity nowadays is more about using what you have and what you can access and what you can afford and what you can maintain and what can you keep maintaining. And that's not bamboo or wood, or sometimes it can be, but not all the time. And I think those of you who might know, it's not hard, it's not easy to find somebody who can make beautiful bamboo structures. Very expensive. Wood is much more expensive now. Everything is, it's this kind of nostalgic or using very organic or raw materials unprocessed has become somehow a luxury. And this is the only reason we avoid it, because we want to make something that's accessible. Does that answer your question? Maybe Pan had a question.
First, thanks for noticing that. So my question is, I might be a little bit struggling about finding my own style. So what I can see about your projects are like you can really maintain the styles of and the language in the projects that you have been designing. So I want to ask for some advice about how you can develop your own styles of designing things like you and Ajahn.
You are still second year student, right?
I know, but maybe I'm asking for myself in the future.
I think it's too fast to find your style. Yeah. I think how can we advise this? Even we until we find that our like a direction or idea or philosophy, we took I think around 5 years or something, right? Until the house gets finished. So we keep discussing about the architecture. What kind of architecture do we like? Not so deep things. Just we are discussing what kind of architecture do you like and why do you like or something like that. We keep questioning about that things. And then after that we made that kind of a matrix, right? we found that kind of empty plot is the architecture that we want to make or something. So maybe advising, I think you can go to see many architecture, not only Thailand. I think you should go abroad to see. There are so many amazing architecture all over the world. Yeah. And then please describe by using your word.
I mean, we've talked a lot together and we write. So we get that by talking together and writing and trying to get our ideas into words and terminologies and descriptions. And I think that's kind of the key part of getting out your ideas is not just intuitively, but also like taking time to look back at your work objectively and then describing it or starting to label it or compare your work to other people's works that are maybe similar or not similar and why, So it's an ongoing process, but I mean, I wouldn't worry so much about that in second year. You have a lot of time.
And one more thing, I think you don't need to be very positive in that sense. We complain a lot, basically, and then that kind of angry, not like frustration, is one of the key to find yourself, I think.
Hi. So I'm a big fan of open-ended structure. So my question is a bit more practical style of your work. So I was wondering about the acoustic performance and other performance. Like, how do you deal with your project when you don't have a lots of walls and partitions in your house?
We sometimes make soundproof wall. And then, for example, but our architecture is one room, but at the same time we detach from the slab or the stories or something. So, for example, house K has only one owner. One story has one owner. So we don't need to care about the sound basically. And then what else? Is there any things that we care about?
I mean, you see a lot of our images very empty just because we don't like to curate the photos too much. So we like either completely empty or like totally fully lived in, right? But actually, when you see the lived in photos, there's lots of stuff. There's like curtains and there's sofas. It actually helps absorb the sound. And we have certain rooms that are kind of need to be kind of acoustic rooms, and those are kind of more treated, I think. But our intention is possibility. So sometimes when we open skylights or even windows that are facing big windows, we suggest sort of different treatments for the windows on the outside, like shading devices and sun shading, but there is still the possibility of opening. So we don't direct, but we provide possibilities and solutions that could be kind of added on to make the space kind of more livable in different ways to fit different usages, I think.
Any other? Maybe time for one last one? You want to ask one? I can tell.
So a lot of your projects are much more like smaller and like medium scale. I was wondering if there were to be a client who comes to you with a bigger scale, let's say like a condo scale, how would your approach be different or not different to that kind of scale? Yeah, thank you.
I think we keep using this kind of idea. For example, the bottom one is how does it call, like a collective housing actually. It's around 3,000 square meters or something. But we apply quite similar idea. But we often to make the structure that can like multiply, or how does it call, like multiply. I think multiply. So we quite, and we always start from like system, right? System doesn't have any scale, so that system can be expanded like theoretically infinity. So we try to use that kind of idea probably, but we are not sure yet.
I don't know how the site will work though. I can't imagine us being so involved with a big project, but yeah, I think theoretically should be okay. But yeah, let's see how it goes. But good question, because we get asked that a lot.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ajahn Phon, Ajahn Taka, for your time and presentation. I think it's really amazing to see your work. Thanks so much for sharing.